Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome back to the channel. You're probably looking at me. You probably started looking at my phone. I was looking at my phone. I apologize for that. We're posting it on socials, and we're gonna get this going here in just a moment. First of all, thank you everyone for tuning in. We are in Indianapolis. We are live from the Airbnb. If you saw the setup that I was streaming on right now, you would be like, Joey, what the hell are you doing? Because I have my laptop and my microphone on a bed, and the laptop is propped up by a pillow, and we have the webcam up top, also propped up by a pillow. So it's quite the setup we have going here. But we are here, and we're going to talk about everything that Omar Khan said in day number 1 of the NFL Combine. I have a whole list of things that he mentioned that I think are worth talking about and things that we're all going to break down. So, we're going to get right into it. We're also going to answer some questions at the very end. So, I'd recommend everybody get their questions in. Maybe, drop one. I'll probably answer it. I don't know how many people are actually going to tune into this, given the fact that I barely promoted this. It was kind of impromptu. I don't blame whatsoever. But we're not too worried about that. Let's get right into everything that Omar Khan said. Let me just make sure that this audio is actually working. All right. It doesn't sound bad. It doesn't sound bad. Let me know if I sound okay in chat. And we're just going to put this out on Twitter really quick. And we're going to get right into everything Omar Khan said. Like I said, drop your questions down below. Live stream time. Yes. The great Dill Bob. We are here. We're back, dude. Posting it on Twitter. Join me to talk everything day 1 of the NFL Combine. All right. Here we go. So, Omar Khan was the first general manager to talk with media. It was 10 a.m. bright and early. It was actually before 10 a.m. he got to the podium. And something I found a little bit interesting, he had his own press conference kind of like off the record. I guess I wouldn't call it off the record actually. With local media, local beat writers, your bigger Steelers writers that you probably know. I don't want to name names or anything, but definitely a lot of the bigger Steelers writers. He kind of had his own press conference with them. And something that I learned very quickly here in Indy is that a lot of general managers do that. You'll get a lot of the local beats, they'll have their own kind of, press conference with the general manager, with the coach. And I guess that makes sense given the fact that it's technically national media all here at the Combine. There was a good crowd for a lot of the press conferences today. I'd say Omar Khan was pretty well attended, given he was the first person to actually take the stand. I guess I don't know if take the stand is the right word, but he was the first one to go up and answer some questions in front of what you'd call the national media, I guess, right? All right. So the first thing that you can take away from Omar Khan's press conference, he said that he doesn't expect the Aaron Rodgers situation to drag out until the month of June like it did last year. This isn't really anything breaking, I guess. This was kind of anticipated. This has been reported before, but it was interesting to hear Omar say it in front of everybody. It was the first chance we've gotten to talk to just Omar since the end of the season, really. Since Mike McCarthy got hired, we got a little bit of Omar during that press conference, but this was the first one-on-one kind of opportunity there was with Omar Khan. So for him to say, yeah, we don't anticipate this dragging on into June, the writing's on the wall, guys. If you're not ready for Aaron Rodgers to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026, buckle up, mentally prepare yourself, because this is happening. This is something that is going to get done sooner rather than later. I would anticipate once the new league year starts, March 9th at noon is when technically the new league year starts, because legal tampering period for free agency opens. That's when you'll start to see some movement. And that's when you'll start to see some movement, particularly on the Aaron Rodgers front. I think he's going to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026. I do think that they'll maybe add a quarterback, maybe another late round guy. We all know that they don't necessarily want to have a real succession plan. They've proven that time and time again that they don't want to have a real succession plan for Aaron Rodgers. They don't want to have a real succession plan for Ben Roethlisberger. So why should this time be any different? It's not going to be any different. That's the answer. So Aaron Rodgers is absolutely going to be the quarterback. He's going to be back. Omar Khan all but confirmed it in his press conference today at the NFL Combine. It felt like the language was all there. It was nothing that made me even slightly think that Aaron Rodgers wasn't coming back. He's had an open dialogue with the team. He's had an open dialogue with Omar Khan. Those are the facts we know. Nothing says that he's gone into a darkness retreat, that he's on ayahuasca. No, none of that. He's going to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026. So there you go. There you have it. If there was any chance that you wanted somebody else, unfortunately, it's shut down. I would still be all over Malik Willis, for the record. All right. So, update on Darnell Washington and his broken arm that he suffered late in the season for the Steelers, and they didn't have him for their playoff game, and that was obviously a huge blow to them. But I don't think Darnell Washington would have made up for the fact that this team could not move the ball down the field whatsoever. Maybe it would have helped him down the field one time or another, but not necessarily a huge difference maker in the passing game, Darnell Washington. And I say that because it's not really his fault. I don't know what he could possibly do given the offensive coordinator situation the Steelers had, given the offensive system the Steelers had in general last year. Hashtag not his fault, but Darnell Washington is a big difference maker for this team, just not necessarily last year because of factors out of his control. Looks like he's going to be good. No limitations for him as far as his injury goes. He's going to be ready for the start of camp and other things like that. He's going to be ready for training camp. It's not going to be something that affects him into next season, which is good. You're going to get probably your best tight end back. And it also sounded like Omar Khan was someone who wants to extend Darnell Washington. There was no language that made me think that the Steelers would even remotely consider moving off of Darnell Washington. Yeah, I believe it was Mark Caboli asked the question, is Darnell Washington kind of a tough eval entering year 4? And Omar Khan looked at him like he had 3 heads. Darnell Washington is someone that's going to be in Pittsburgh for a very, very long time. And I think that Omar Khan's going to make sure of that. I don't think the investment in Pat Freiermuth will stop that whatsoever. I don't think that Jonnu Smith will stop that whatsoever, which is a whole different issue. Jonnu Smith's a whole different issue we'll get into here later. But I think Darnell Washington's going to be with this team for a long time. And it's good to hear that his injury is, he's dealing with it well. It's pretty much all healed. And he's going to be ready and start the next season for the Steelers and be ready for camp and all those offseason activities. So positive news on Darnell Washington, and that's never a bad thing. All right. Another injury update. Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones is entering year 4. I still don't know what the hell he is. But regardless of what you think of Broderick Jones, he's going to be on this football team next year. But at what capacity? Omar Khan was non-committal when asked about Broderick Jones' availability for the start of camp, for the start of minicamp, for the start of offseason activities. Even going into training camp, he just kind of said, he suffered a major injury. We're going to see where we are. Now, there are 2 ways you can look at this. You can look at it and you can say, well, he did suffer a really bad injury. Maybe they just don't want to say anything. Guys, this Broderick Jones neck injury, first of all, it was kind of a freak injury. And these kind of injuries are incredibly serious. I don't know any other way to put it. This is clearly something that is affecting Broderick Jones outside of football. And it's something that clearly hasn't gotten a whole lot better since he suffered it. And he suffered this back in November, guys, all the way back in November against the Chicago Bears. He hasn't played since then. And now it seems like there's a real possibility that he could miss a lot of time going into next season. So that's interesting. That's something to keep in mind whenever you talk about Broderick Jones, the left tackle position. What are the Steelers going to do? Dylan Cook did look good for Broderick Jones in his limited reps that he got for the Steelers down the stretch of last season. I don't know that I'd be super confident in starting Dylan Cook at left tackle. It makes it all the more likely that the Steelers invest in a tackle with one of their 12 draft picks. Khan was saying he wishes he had 12 draft picks every single year. I wish we did too. But it just makes it all the more likely because of the Broderick Jones injury, because the Steelers have so many needs and they maybe need to spread them out, maybe spread these picks out for all of these areas that they need guys in. It makes it more likely that they invest in a left tackle to maybe supplement what could be a injured Broderick Jones into next season. It seems like a season is very much in question. And I know it's only February and that may seem like an overreaction. It seemed like a very serious comment from Omar Khan. That's what I took from it. So Broderick Jones, big question mark going into next season. And it seems like this injury is affecting him a lot. So yeah. A couple of other things. Caleb Johnson and Roman Wilson. I know they both sucked last year. Everybody knows they both sucked last year. In fact, even Omar Khan knows that they sucked last year. He literally said as much. He said about Caleb Johnson, I know the product on the field was not good last year, but they're excited to see him on the field in the future. I guess this is the right approach. I am on record of saying I want Caleb Johnson to get a shot. I don't know how the hell he's going to get a shot if they bring back Kenneth Gainwell and Jalen Ward's still under contract with this football team. Where the hell is Caleb Johnson going to get any reps? I'm not quite certain, but Omar Khan did say that he wants to see Caleb Johnson on the field, and I do believe him because of the fact that he drafted him in the 3rd round last year. You don't draft a guy in the top 3 rounds if you have no belief in him whatsoever. Now, I know that Omar Khan can very well use this language. What's he going to say? He's not going to out a second-year player straight up. And you're absolutely correct. But I do think from a general manager standpoint, there is a part of him that wants to see Caleb Johnson work out. Why would he not want to see his own draft pick hit? I think if you want to look at it in the lens of, well, Omar Khan, he knows deep down that Caleb Johnson is good. Why would we even give him a shot? I think you can say that about Mike McCarthy because Mike McCarthy's the new coach. McCarthy didn't draft Caleb Johnson, so why would he have any personal attachment to him? I get that side of it. But I do think that Omar Khan does really, really want to see Caleb Johnson get a shot. And he said the same for Roman Wilson. I don't think anybody's a bigger Roman Wilson fan than Omar Khan. And I'm a pretty big Roman Wilson fan. I was the leader of the Roman Wilson Club. I was banging that drum last training camp because he stood out. He looked really, really good. And it seemed like he was developing a good relationship with Aaron Rodgers, a good connection. And he looked pretty solid in preseason. There you go. There's your lesson. Don't put much stock in preseason. So I don't know what to think of Roman Wilson, but it does seem like Omar Khan does want to see him succeed. And I know I just said with Caleb Johnson, it feels like I wouldn't give up on him too early, especially if you're Omar Khan from the general manager standpoint. You want your draft pick to hit. I think with Roman Wilson, the leash is a little bit shorter. But at the same time, I don't think Roman Wilson has gotten a fair shake or even a good look whatsoever in the Steelers offense. There's some reports of behavior issues, not even behavior issues, like character issues, work ethic issues. I don't believe any of that. I do think that Omar Khan would not make comments about, how excited he is about the person Roman is, the work ethic that Roman has. I don't think he would make those comments. I do think the leash is significantly shorter for someone like Roman Wilson, even though he's in a much more crowded room, I guess, because, Caleb Johnson's in the much more crowded room. That's what I mean, because he's in the running back room with Jalen Warren, obviously, and then Kenneth Gainwell, pending free agent, which actually is a pretty decent segue into our next one. So Caleb Johnson and Roman Wilson seems like they're going to be on this football team next year. If I had to pick one that's going to go, I'd say Roman Wilson, because I think he's been on the team longer. And I think Caleb Johnson, they were drafted in the same round. It feels like that's a bigger point of emphasis for Khan to hit on. Does that make sense? I feel like they can invest in a lot more and get in a more immediate upgrade cheaper. Running back, it feels like they're going to bring back Caleb Johnson and maybe just kind of settle. Maybe just kind of get Caleb Johnson involved more. Not sure how that's going to happen, but yeah. All right. So Kenneth Gainwell. Is Kenneth Gainwell going to be back with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026? Me personally, I would be all over Caleb Johnson. According to Spot Rack, his yearly average salary is projected to be about $3 million per year. Steelers should offer him 2 years for $8 million, fully guaranteed. I wouldn't even give a shit. Right now, I would do that. I would do that for the 2025 team MVP, the person who led your team in receptions, the person who added over 500 yards on the ground and almost 1,000 total scrimmage yards in general. That's a small price to pay for someone that was that incredibly productive, especially given the fact that he has a great relationship with Aaron Rodgers, a great connection with Aaron Rodgers, someone that Aaron Rodgers wanted on this football team. The Steelers brought in, and it was such a rousing success. And we just talked about how Aaron Rodgers is all but going to be the quarterback of this Pittsburgh Steelers team. The team doesn't want to announce it for about a month. They know the answer. Omar Khan knows the answer of Aaron Rodgers is coming back or not right now. He knows damn well. And I'm like 99% certain that the answer is Aaron Rodgers is coming back. If Aaron Rodgers comes back to this football team, it'll be a huge domino effect. I think Kenneth Gainwell is going to be the big domino there. Kenneth Gainwell is going to be back on this football team, especially if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. Now, Kenneth Gainwell is going to get money from somewhere, and I'm interested to see how much Kenneth Gainwell could fetch on the open market, because I think his skills are very useful to a lot of different teams and a lot of West Coast style offenses. Now, Omar Khan did say that he's been in contact with why do I keep saying Caleb Johnson? He has been in contact with Kenneth Gainwell's agent, and he knows that they want him back. So I guess that's a start. That means that the Steelers and Kenneth Gainwell's agent, they're in talks. They know what each side wants. It still feels like I wouldn't hold my breath if you're waiting for something to get done before the deadline, before the new league year begins, I guess is what I would say. But at the same time, never say never. That's my thoughts on Kenneth Gainwell. We'll stop for a couple of questions. Was Ben Johnson the highlight so far? I'm going to talk about Ben Johnson in a little bit. I was very excited to see Ben Johnson. He's a hell of a guy. I like him. I love Ben Johnson. We know this. Makai Lemon appreciates the art of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Does he really? Can I have some proof on that? Can anybody in chat confirm to me that Makai Lemon knows about the Edmund Fitzgerald? Did he post about it or something? I hope you're not trolling me, because that would make me very happy. That would be unlimited content. Do you think the Steelers try and take a wide receiver in the first round? Someone like Jordan Tyson? Do you think they trade up for one? I think Jordan Tyson not testing at the combine makes it all the more likely that the Steelers try to go up and get him. I think that hurts his draft stock a little bit, because his injury concerns are like what his only knock is, what his only major flaw is that he missed time in each of his last 3 college seasons. And the report is he's not participating because he still has a nagging hamstring injury that he had end of last season for the Sun Devils. And if that's still bothering him going into March, that's definitely concerning. So I think if the options for the Steelers are maybe a Denzel Boston or trading up a couple of spots, maybe giving up another late round pick to go up and get someone like Jordan Tyson, I'd be all over that. I think they need to go receiver round 1. That would be my pick of all the positions that I think that they need to upgrade on and address in round 1. That would be my pick, is wide receiver. I think Jordan Tyson, him not participating is good news for the Steelers, because it means that they're probably going to be able to get a player that they wouldn't otherwise get at a premium position lower in the draft. That's what that means. Good question there. Omar Khan would rather settle for Christian Kirk. Not bad. Not wrong is what I meant to say. Not wrong whatsoever. More about the Steelers being interested in Ty Simpson in the first. Listen, everybody I talk to about Ty Simpson, I could make a whole video on this. If you ask the general Joe Schmo, anybody about what they would think of Ty Simpson going in the first round, they puke. They tell you it's terrible. But I'm telling you that all of these draft experts, I don't know how the hell they know, but they know. They know something. Mel Kiper projected in his latest mock draft, it dropped today on ESPN, the Steelers who picked Ty Simpson at 21. A lot of these guys have Ty Simpson graded as a first-round quarterback. He's definitely the second best quarterback in the draft, behind Fernando Mendoza. I don't think it's Garrett Nussmeier, and I like Nussmeier a good bit. I think he's probably my QB3 at this point. But Ty Simpson's the quarterback too. And I know the baggage that comes with Ty Simpson of he had one half of a really good season, and he didn't really have a ton of experience the rest of his college career. Maybe that's what makes him a little bit more intriguing to me, though, is because there is so much untapped potential, and because the first half of that Alabama season was so good. I think there is something to be said about all of these draft experts mocking Ty Simpson and the Steelers. And I don't think it's just that the Steelers need a quarterback, that the Steelers are the obvious quarterback needy team, because I think all of them know damn well that Aaron Rodgers is coming back. But Ty Simpson being the popular mock to the Steelers means something. Yeah, you're not wrong. All of the Ty Simpsons fan, that's the only thing they have to grab on is that he was good for one half of a season. Are you going to make this stream into a video? Yes, I'm cutting up this stream into short little videos talking about each thing that Khan said and then why I'm scared of the Ravens coaching staff, which I really am. I'm fucking terrified of the Ravens coaching staff, for the record. So, good questions, guys. Keep them going. We'll answer them at the end here. So, one of the final things that Khan said that I thought, this is not something he said just once. This is more of a general takeaway from me. Omar Khan was asked several times specifically about Jonnu Smith, several times specifically about Patrick Queen, and several times about Jalen Ramsey. Now, let's start with Jalen Ramsey because I'm the least worried about Jalen Ramsey. I still think that Jalen Ramsey can play outside corner for this football team, and I think that the Steelers view him that way. Because Omar Khan said he's a versatile player, said that he still thinks he can, play corner. So they're confident in that. He talked about how he switched positions for us. So the way that he was willing to straight up move positions after the Steelers went out and invested serious capital into him, I think that speaks volumes. There's a big kind of respect between the Steelers and Jalen Ramsey. And I commend that. I love Jalen Ramsey. I think he was a hell of a player for the Steelers for a large majority of last season. And the fact that he was playing a position he hasn't played naturally since college speaks volumes about the way that he just wanted to play in Pittsburgh. He wanted to play for Mike Tomlin one way or another, whatever you wanted to say. He wanted to play in Pittsburgh. I'm not mad at Jalen Ramsey being back on this football team, although we would save them a good bit of cap. But at the end of the day, what you have to understand is that this team still views themselves as people who can win. They still think that their ultimate goal is winning one playoff game. They think that winning one playoff game alone will get the monkey off of their back. It will lift such a weight off of their shoulders if the Steelers could win just one playoff game. That's what they think. That's how they view this next season. So when they get asked about Patrick Queen and Jonnu Smith specifically, Omar Khan talked about Patrick Queen like he was such a great player, and he just straight up hasn't been for the Steelers. He straight up hasn't been. There was no mention of him being a cap casualty. And he was questioned straight up about, these older players, particularly Patrick Queen, Jonnu Smith. Are they, in danger of being cap casualties? And he just said Patrick Queen's a great player. We've been in contact with him. He's been in the building getting to know Mike McCarthy. And it doesn't seem like any language to me like, oh, Patrick Queen's going to get cut. There were several general managers today. The Dolphins GM said that all options are on the table, including a trade for Tua Tagovailoa. Ryan Poles said that DJ Moore, it's hard to project if he'll be on the team next year, and he has a hell of a cap hit against him. It would take a lot of dead money for the Bears to eat to get DJ Moore off this football team. So I don't think the general manager should be upset. They shouldn't hold back and know anything to these guys, especially because they paid them so much money. And let's be honest about Patrick Queen, guys. What is Patrick Queen going into year 3 for the Pittsburgh Steelers? He's a guy that has the richest free agent contract in the history of the franchise, and he's been a disappointment. He's underperformed. That's what Patrick Queen is. So the fact that Omar Khan is talking about him in such a glowing tone, maybe I'm reading too much into it, guys, but I don't think so. I think Patrick Queen's going to be on this football team next year. I think that they believe that he is genuinely a net positive for this team. They feel the same way about Jonnu Smith. I have some terrible news for everybody that wants Jonnu Smith back. And or I guess that's good news for people that want Jonnu Smith back. Why would you want Jonnu Smith back, though, is what I'm getting at. I don't think Jonnu Smith at his current contract is worth keeping whatsoever. It would save the Steelers about $6 million to get him off the books. Get him off the books for $6 million. I don't care what it costs in dead cap. This guy is a hole on the football field. He could not block for the Steelers. He barely broke 200 yards after the Steelers went out of their way to trade for him. They invested. They gave up a 3-time All-Pro safety who can still play and still be a very good contributor, by the way, in Minkah Fitzpatrick to a terrible team in Miami. And now he's going to get traded again. But that's neither here nor there. Point is, they gave up someone who could very well have helped their status quo in winning just enough, getting to 9 to 10 wins. That's their status quo. They gave him up for Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey, who they played out of position. And I think Jalen Ramsey was a phenomenal addition, a phenomenal get for Omar Khan. But the Jonnu Smith part, it sours the whole trade. It makes the trade not look good because in a vacuum, it was really Minka for Jalen Ramsey. And I don't agree with that whatsoever. I know there were a couple of late round pick swaps, and that's part of the reason the Steelers have such a bevy of draft picks. But let's call it what it is. It was Minka Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey, and I can't say I'm super happy about that. And it looks like Jonnu Smith is absolutely going to be a member of this football team next year. Again, there was no language that made me think that Jonnu Smith was going to be cut. And I don't think these GMs owe anything to these players. And again, I know people are going to say, well, what would he do? Trash him, Joey? Again, there were several general managers today that basically trashed their players and put them in weird positions. That happens all the time. So why should it be any different for Jonnu Smith? It shouldn't be. He should be held accountable. He was flat out not good. He had his best friend in Arthur Smith here, and he just amassed over 200 yards receiving. This is with Pat Freiermuth barely getting involved either. Everybody thought that the Steelers' tight end room was going to blow up. Wow. We have Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith, who had over 1,100 yards last season. Hell yeah. Turns out Darnell Washington's the best of them all. And Pat and Jonnu are making damn near $20 million a year. Combined $20 million a year. It's baffling to me. I don't understand how Patrick Queen, Jonnu Smith, and even Jalen Ramsey at this point can say on this football team, but they have a different ideology than me. They have a different ideology than a lot of people. They aren't necessarily worried about the future right now. They're not necessarily worried about that. They're worried about winning as many games as they can. Again, they think winning a playoff game would do wonders for them. They genuinely think that that would be the best thing to happen. So, get ready, guys. Looks like Patrick Queen, Jonnu Smith, and Jalen Ramsey are all going to be back in Pittsburgh Steelers uniforms in 2026. So you have that to look forward to. All right. It's time to talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Guys, I went to a lot of press conferences today. And first of all, Indianapolis is phenomenal. I think Indianapolis is a beautiful city. I get a lot of Pittsburgh vibes from it. Just walking around, and I really like the downtown area. It's been a lot of fun. The Skywalk. I don't know if anybody knows about the Indianapolis Skywalk. If you're listening and you do, I fucking love the Skywalk. I didn't even have to leave my Airbnb to get to the combine. I was where the coaches were being interviewed. I didn't step 1 foot outside. It's phenomenal. It's unlike any city I've ever been to. And I was a really big fan of it. Now, still a couple of days left in Indy, but every coach that I really, really respect, or not every coach that I really, really respect, some coaches that a lot of people think very, very highly of, talked about Ravens offensive coordinator Declan Doyle. And Declan Doyle was the Bears offensive coordinator last season, and he didn't call plays. Obviously, that was Ben Johnson. And Ben Johnson had some very nice things to say about Declan Doyle. In fact, during Ben Johnson's press conference, it looked like the guy was about to cry talking about losing Declan Doyle. It looked like there were tears coming out of Ben Johnson's eyes when he was talking about he can't believe that Declan Doyle is gone. He can't believe that he got poached that soon, that early. Not good. Said he's, an up-and-coming coach. He's just going to continue to rise. Again, Ben Johnson, offensive genius, took the Bears from an absolute dumpster fire of a team and organization overall, made them a team that was really a play away from an NFC championship game in year 1. And they look really, really strong for the future. And if anybody really knows, they know that I love Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. I love what the Chicago Bears are doing. So someone like Declan Doyle, the fact that Ben Johnson was so torn up about losing him scares me. Dan Campbell, again, really underrated offensive mind. Everybody knows Dan Campbell. They think he's like this rough and tough, bite a kneecap off guy. And he's built that reputation, deservedly so. When he puts them glasses on, and he gets a clipboard. He's a nerd calling the plays, and I love it. I love Dan Campbell again. Dan Campbell worked with Declan Doyle at one point and said, "Hey, this guy again. He's going to be an up and comer. He's going to be a riser. He's going to be someone that is a future head coach." Again, talked incredibly highly of Declan Doyle. Then later in the evening, I go to Sean Payton's press conference. Sean Payton talked about how Declan Doyle interviewed with him in New Orleans, didn't get the job, and Payton was kind of upset about that. And then he got traded a year later to the Denver Broncos, and he hired Declan Doyle as the tight ends coach. And he said, he blinked his eyes and he was gone. He was in Chicago, and now he's out in Baltimore being the offensive coordinator again. Spoke incredibly highly of him. When it's all three of those guys, three guys that you should respect, three guys that, didn't make the playoffs this year, but have had a lot of success in the league over the last couple of years. Sean Payton for the last 20 years. He's a Hall of Fame coach. Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson both turned two of the worst run franchises in the National Football League around over the last couple of years. When those guys respect Declan Doyle enough to talk about him like that, I pay attention. And I've been tweeting about it, and I get a lot of shit for it on Twitter. But guys, I'm genuinely worried about the coaching staff that the Baltimore Ravens are building. I think they hit a home run with Jesse Minter, and I think they hit a grand fucking slam with Declan Doyle. Now, this guy has no play calling experience, and that'll be something to monitor. But the fact that Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell, and Sean Payton all spoke so highly of him, it makes me worry. It makes me worry that the Steelers may have messed up. The Steelers didn't go the right route. They decided to go with an older coach, and they went with an offensive coach. So I guess if you were complaining about that, you got what you wanted there. But the Ravens did the exact opposite of the Steelers. And the Ravens and Steelers are really kind of in similar positions when you think about it. They both think that they can win, and they can win very soon. What the Steelers did was a little bit of patchwork. We're going to hire Mike McCarthy. We're going to bring in a lot of his friends, and we're going to try to run it back and see what we can do. What the Ravens did is we have a quarterback at the peak of his powers who is probably one of the most talented quarterbacks ever in Lamar Jackson. But he hasn't been able to get to the big one. Harbaugh was the one holding us back. We're going to fire Harbaugh. We're going to bring in a young defensive-minded head coach, and we're going to get the youngest up-and-coming offensive coordinator, maybe future head coach in the National Football League. Now, the good thing for the Steelers is that if Declan Doyle is good, he probably won't be an offensive coordinator for very long because these young offensive minds are so highly touted in the league. And the way that Declan Doyle has moved up the ranks, he could be gone and have a head coaching job if he's really, really that good very soon. Very soon. So there's some silver lining in that. But I think the way the Baltimore Ravens approached this offseason was much, much better than what the Steelers did. I think that shows that they're not only trying to win now, they're playing for the future. They're acknowledging that they have a long-term answer at quarterback, and they're acknowledging that, well, if Jesse Minter sucks, we can do a complete and total wipe of everything. That's on the table for them. For the Steelers, it seems like they're just going to keep compounding everything that they're building, and they really aren't building towards much of anything. I love what the Ravens did. I worry that Declan Doyle is going to be a huge asset for them. I'm absolutely frightened by the Baltimore Ravens coaching staff. Can't lie to you guys. I'm very worried about them. But let me know what you guys think. Are we worried about the Ravens? What do you think about whatever the hell the Ravens did with their offense, with their coaching staff in general? All right, let's answer a couple of questions to end things off here. Appreciate you guys watching. Do we like the live streams? I'd like to do more live streams. Again, like I said, this one was kind of impromptu, but if this is something you guys are interested in, I would love to do this a couple times a week, chop it up into videos. If you miss it, you can view it then, or you can just watch the whole thing as a damn podcast. All right. Caleb G 1790. I personally can't stand the Will Howard hype. I see people saying we shouldn't get another quarterback because we have him, and I think that's ridiculous. We need to have somewhat of a quarterback competition. I agree with you. I'm not on the Will Howard train myself, but Omar did say that McCarthy and him have watched all of Will Howard's practice tape, and it was very impressive. Very impressive. I don't know. Whatever you want to read into that. There is some genuine smoke that the Steelers really do think highly of themselves for drafting Will Howard. Omar Khan does really like Will Howard. Mike McCarthy does like Will Howard. Was Mike McCarthy kind of hyping it up to get the job? I think so, but hey, who am I to say? Who am I to say? Personally, I'd love Ramsey at nickel. IMO, he can tackle and still hit. He gets burnt and still tossed a step, he gets burnt and still lost a step. But I'm a huge Ramsey fan, so I was happy when we got him. But I hope he gets a good mold soon. I really, really think that he could play outside corner. I think him and Joey Porter Jr. at outside corner, that gives the Steelers a lot of opportunities. They can go out and still draft a corner, and I think that they're going to bring back one of Asante Samuel or James Pierre. Probably one of those will be back. James Pierre is going to be the more expensive of the two. Isn't that wild to say? James Pierre is going to be, he's going to get a little bit of money. He's probably going to get a pay raise from somebody, whether it's the Steelers or not. Similar situation to Kenneth Gainwell, I'd imagine. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Ramsey could be phenomenal in the nickel for the Steelers. He could be, just an outside corner in general. I think he is still very physical. That's going to be the name of his game. He's kind of shaped his game a little differently over the last couple of years, but he's still a very physical guy. Ramsey got caught way too many times out of position, giving up big gains. Yeah, towards the end of last season, it was not pretty. it was not pretty for Jalen Ramsey. But I think as an outside corner, and you're getting Deshaun Elliott back, and I think this safety class is a lot of fun. I think it's a very deep class. And if the Steelers really do want to move Ramsey back down to safety, they can go out and draft somebody. There's a lot of guys that I like. I'm thinking like a Bud Clark in round number 3. Steelers have a couple of third rounders. I think Bud Clark, Deshaun Elliott, Joey Porter Jr., Jalen Ramsey. That doesn't sound too bad. To start off a secondary, that doesn't sound too bad. Queen led the team in tackles. Like, bro, we paid him all that money to do more than make tackles. Miles Jack did lead this team in tackles one time. Yeah, Patrick Queen, man, he lets people hear it on Twitter. So if you're listening, Patrick Queen, you're not. But if you are, first of all, come on the show. Second of all, it's too much money to justify someone who is a volume tackler. There are plenty of volume tacklers out there. I'm thinking like a Caden Ellis from Atlanta, who's a pending free agent. Probably get him for cheaper than what you're getting Patrick Queen for. He'd be a volume tackler and probably it's hard to be about the same in coverage. He'd be better in coverage than Patrick Queen would be. So I'm thinking someone like that could be a reasonable. But then again, I don't know. The Steelers seem pretty proud of the investment that they've made in old Patrick Queen. So I'd anticipate him being back on this football team next year. I feel like the Steelers' 3 third-round picks are very valuable considering how deep some of the position groups are in this draft. What do you think? I think that's a good point. I'm interested to see what they do. I think that they absolutely have the ammo to move up in round 1 and even round 2 pretty early. They absolutely have the ammo to go up and do that. But I would not be shocked if they, maybe traded up once and they still have a lot of ammo at that point and they just hit every single position. Every single thing. I wouldn't be shocked at that whatsoever. I think that's completely possible. I think the 3 third-round picks is great, though, because it allows you to go best player available first round in my mind. Like I did a mock for the mock off season that I did. If you didn't watch that video, you totally should go watch it right now. Vega Iowan was still there at pick 21, and that was the best player available scenario. I think that's a very likely outcome for the Steelers. The 3 third-round picks allow them to get a receiver, get a safety, get a corner, get positions that may be viewed as, we need this more. But then again, left guard, Isaac Seumalo is a free agent. I don't know what the hell is happening now with Broderick Jones. You can go out and get a tackle in the 3rd round too. It just feels like those 3 third-round picks, it's going to help them a ton. They're going to be able to clean up and get some guys that could potentially start for them. So, yeah. Yeah, this is cool. Appreciate it, the great Dill Bob. Do you think George Pickens actually holds out if he gets tagged? I can guarantee you that George Pickens is going to hold out if he gets tagged. 1,000,000%. You think George Pickens is going to play on a franchise tag after the season he had? No. I don't care that the franchise tag is where I believe it's worth $28 million per year for wide receivers. I think that's a hell of a pay raise for George Pickens. He's not going to want to play on that, though. He's going to want to get paid somewhere, and he will get paid somewhere. He absolutely deserves to get paid somewhere. But if it's not going to be the Dallas Cowboys, then I don't think George Pickens will have too big of an issue with that. He wants that. All right. With all that being said, that is all I have from day number 1 of the NFL Combine. Actually, I'll give you guys a story. John Lynch was probably my favorite person I got to talk to today. I got such a good answer out of 49ers general manager John Lynch. I asked him about Mike Tomlin because Mike Tomlin was his defensive backs coach when he was in the prime of his career at Tampa Bay, the height of John Lynch's powers, Hall of Fame player, and he's a hell of a general manager. I asked him what impact Mike Tomlin had on him as a player and what his thoughts were on Tomlin stepping down. And, obviously he said, this was the time of year him and Tomlin would catch up. He's sad that he's not there, but he gave me a pretty funny story. He talked about when Tomlin arrived to Tampa Bay to be the defensive backs coach in 2001. Again, John Lynch was at the height of his powers. He handed John Lynch a VHS tape with 86 plays on it, and it had a sticky note on it with 86 things, one on each single play that he could do better on. And it pissed John Lynch off. Who is this guy thinking he can come in and tell me what I'm good at and how I can get better? And then, he talks about how his wife told him, maybe watch it, give it a shot, see what he has to say. And he watched it, and it made him a better player. And that's how Mike Tomlin was. And he says that the game's going to miss him a lot. And I thought it was a really, really cool answer from John Lynch. It was something that, his face lit up. He was smiling. He seemed to enjoy it. So it was really cool to get that question or that story out of John Lynch and kind of maybe an unknown Mike Tomlin story. I thought that was really, really cool. But yeah, keep an eye on Behind the Steel Curtain over on SB Nation for all of my writings and thoughts on everything happening in the NFL Combine and the NFL Draft. We'll do more live streams like this. I'd like to do a live mock draft, perhaps. Let you guys pick, viewers pick the guys. Some live call-ins. I think that would all be a lot of fun. Impromptu live stream. This will all be cut up into shorter videos throughout the day tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. We'll talk about everything. Well, it'll just be a recap. It'll be what I said again. But nonetheless, I appreciate everyone for watching and listening. That's the show for now. We'll be back tomorrow night, and we'll recap day number 2 of the Combine, and we'll talk some more Steelers football. Again, appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you later.